We are going to be reading the book Smoke. This is chapter 1. It smells like a stable in here, Ellie Martinez complained. She was peering into the back of an old pickup truck. The odor of horses, pigs, and chickens was thick. Mr. Dietrich usually used it to cart his livestock around to markets and fairs. Now it was being used to save human lives. Just get in, Ellie, Mrs. Martinez urged. Ellie's mother was nervous. The fire has already destroyed so many homes. Now that it's coming here, we want to make sure you're safe. A wild forest fire had been burning for days. Flames leaping from tree to tree had ruined acres of forest and property. Anything in the fire's path burned quickly to the ground. Hundreds of forest rangers and volunteers had been fighting the fire with axes, picks, and shovels, water trucks, and even helicopters. But they hadn't been able to stop the raging fire. In fact, they hadn't even slowed it down. The Martinez house was now the firefighters' command post. Men and women ran back and forth across the Martinez lawn. There were forest rangers and state troopers, as well as neighbors and local volunteers. All of the firefighters were exhausted and covered with dirt and soot. Ellie's father helped her into the truck, already filled with other neighborhood children. Then he looked north towards the woods. Ellie followed his gaze. Clouds of white and gray smoke swept high across the pale blue sky. Just over the treetops, the smoke was thick and black. The wind has shifted again, said Mr. Martinez. The flames will be here in an hour or two. This is our last chance to save our home. Ellie started to climb back out of the truck. Then let me stay and help. Mr. Martinez shook his head. You're too young, Ellie. I'm 15. Besides, you're letting Hector stay, Ellie protested, and he's only 17. Your brother is a volunteer forest ranger, Mrs. Martinez replied. Besides, he wants to see if Nacho will show up before it's too late. Nacho was Hector's dog. Nacho had been with the Martinez family since he was a puppy. Ellie knew how much her brother loved that dog. A white-haired man in overalls came hobbling to the back of the truck. I've delayed leaving as long as I can, Mr. Dietrich told Ellie's parents. I've already driven around and picked up all the other children in this area. I've got to get going. Mr. Martinez quickly kissed Ellie on the cheek. Adios. We have to get back to work, too. Be safe, sweetheart. Mrs. Martinez reached up and stroked her daughter's long black hair. Then Mr. and Mrs. Martinez hurried away to join the other firefighters. As the truck pulled away, Ellie stared longingly at the Martinez home. Her grandparents had built this house. Her father painted the green trim on the house every year. Her mother tended the garden throughout the seasons. Ellie herself had made the chili pepper wreath hanging on the front door. Ellie doubted that her parents had a chance of saving the house. She was sure they were worried too. I'm glad my grandparents aren't alive to see it go up in smoke, Ellie thought to herself. It would break their hearts. Ellie felt like a coward as the truck rocked down the winding road. She'd never run away from it before, not a thing. I hate this, she muttered in disgust. The girl next to her leaned over. What's wrong? The girl asked. I should be helping them fight the fire, Ellie said. It's not like I'm a baby. I'm 15 years old. I know what you mean, the girl nodded. My folks made me leave, too. Ellie leaned against the side of the truck and looked at the other passengers. She recognized some of the children from school. Ellie spotted one kid she knew very well. The girl's name was Sylvia Rivera. She liked being called Sylvie. Ellie often babysat for the 7-year-old. Sylvie was looking at the back of the truck and her eyes filled with tears. Ellie leaned over to her. It's going to be all right, she said gently. Sylvie just looked at her, not saying a word. They'll stop the fire before it reaches our homes, Ellie added. Sylvie started to say something, but the truck suddenly jolted to the right. Everyone was thrown about. Ellie heard the brakes screech as they came to a sudden stop. Ellie and a few other children jumped from the back of the truck to see what had happened. Books, sneakers, pots, pans, clothing, and toys were scattered all over the road in front of them. A big mattress lay in the middle of the heap. On top of it was a broken trunk. This stuff must have fallen from someone's truck, said Mr. Dietrich, walking to the front of his truck. He began to drag the trunk off the road. Let's help him, Ellie said to the others. The kids began tossing things to the side of the road. At least I'm doing something, Ellie thought as she moved a large cardboard box out of the way. She was gathering up an armful of clothes when something caught her eye. Off in the distance, Sylvia Rivera was disappearing into the woods. A lump of fear suddenly formed in Ellie's throat. Sylvie was heading back toward their homes and straight toward 1,000 acres of flame.